And there's also a de-skilling involved, where sort of pap smears are now relegated to, they don't do pap smear diagnosis. It's done by someone in a lab, so which has medical legal issues, but that's another story. So by focusing on these three constructs, my study was really focused. My research questions reflected these four constructs, three of which are essential, and then I added political economy. So using the same sort of template or map, I'm now looking at accountants, I'm looking at engineers, and other highly skilled professionals to see if this pattern is the same. Then in terms of academics, and I'm looking at the psychological contracts of academics. And again, this involved a process of reflexivity, looking at the way my friends and colleagues' workplaces are changing, the way mine is. I looked at this idea of anti-performativity, the rise of new managerialism. All of these things come under anti-performativity. And denaturalization, right? So challenging existing organizational theory about best practice. So the sort of rhetoric is, best HRM practice. So quantitatively, organizations can be doing quite well in terms of profit margins and so on. But qualitatively, they don't necessarily do that well. But again, you can see sticking with the three constructs, my research questions and research instruments, these are all interviews, qualitative research, centered around those three constructs. And I'm doing this work with a student as well. So with her proposal, it became relatively easy after several attempts to generate questions around psychological contracts, for example. And then this is something that I did last year, which was around Marikana and critical industrial relations. And this was work I did with my third year class in industrial relations, where we spent the entire semester. So that was just sort of luck, because second semester started almost at the same time as the Marikana shootings happened. And here, the whole class, through me as the facilitator, went through this process of reflexivity, right? How were the miners portrayed in the press? How were the HR managers portrayed in the press? Why were the miners demonized and the managers seen as, sort of these rational people just trying to make decisions, doing the best they can? And then this became a sort of content analysis project with the students, where they had to go through this own sort of reflexivity, identify instances of anti-performativity, political economy. And for the students and myself, it sort of involved a process of taking the popular media's opinion of what was happening in Marikana and saying, hang on, there's something else happening here. I see now it's coming up in the commission, but when this was actually done, that hadn't happened yet. So this is this is one way which I return to those three concepts. Then the project that, a series of sort of things that I'm looking at the moment is really about how HRM and how knowledge is produced in HRM. And really, in popular culture, HR is seen as sort of this evil thing. No one has a nice thing to say about it. And it's sort of based on a book called Dead Man Working, written by a critical management theorist called Peter Fleming, I think. And here, there's several potential topics. So this is still in Genesis. So I'm taking sort of, mainstream HRM themes like motivation, talent management, human relations, work-life balance, and applying those three core constructs: reflexivity, anti-performativity, and denaturalization. And each of these can be a project on its own, for example, right? So I'll just give you the example of Google. So my students get quite excited about these sort of new age organizations and how you can get your laundry done, you have a personal butler, you have people take your car into the car wash and so on. But the research shows that people who work for organizations like that actually put in 18-hour days on average, some even more. But if 90% of the HR sort of research sort of advocates these kind of HRM practices. But if you're doing this kind of project, you're going to say, A, let's be reflexive. What are the research questions that I can answer around reflexivity? Then what are the research questions that I can ask about performativity? And finally, what are the research questions that I can ask about denaturalization? So I want to encourage everyone here to include these sort of tenets or constructs in your own work. At PhD level, it's especially important to make a contribution, and I think it moves your thesis from being merely descriptive. And there's so much potential to do critical management studies, especially in the South African context. So, yeah, thank you.